I'm Rahul.
And so today we're going to be talking about our field museum experience and kind of like what we saw. And so basically, what we were told to do is kind of write a couple of hypotheses about movement and culture, or movement and posture. And so for our first thesis, we kind of stated how culture shapes posture. And so our hypothesis is that in older civilizations in the Eastern Hemisphere, you would tend to see individuals that would have better posture than those in Western cultures. There are several factors as to why that might be, but our biggest idea is that due to the fact that in traditional Eastern cultures, it is more common to see people sitting on the ground than it would be seeing someone sitting in a chair. And so, like in this picture right here, you kind of see the fact that, like I said, you would normally see people sitting on the ground. And so this kind of causes more recruitment of muscles such as the rectus abdominis, the rector spinae, the trapezius, etc., that are utilized for posture, and you would see them recruiting it more often than those in Western cultures who don't necessarily need to do it as much because you would see them sitting in chairs. And so what the chairs do is that it causes the reduction of activation of muscles because it's doing it for you, thus leading to kind of like a kyphosis and lordosis of the spine. So even though in this example they're seated, we believe that this can also be translated into a standing posture. If you compare cultures for today, you see that there are always infomercials for better chairs for lumbar support or for mattresses that might be able to fix posture. But in traditional Eastern cultures, you can probably argue the fact that the lack of furniture actually does you better for your posture because you have to recruit the muscles more often and you have to find a more efficient way to do it.
So this one thing to add, I would say, is that this the kyphosis of the back really is formed through habits, and our habits are formed by our culture. So you don't really see this kyphosis of the spine in Eastern culture, and things like hip hinging and making sure your back is flat when you're bending down to pick things up, and it's just normal for them. And for our next thesis was our movement and environment, and our thesis was that in environments that require you to ride horses to get from places to places or just to survive or to hunt, we noticed that these individuals may have increased genial rerum, and we thought of this because of how there is an increased hip abduction and internal rotation of the knee in order to stay on balance the horse. So this would create abnormal gait because there might be increased knee circumduction and things like that. And an example, as you can see, is these Native Americans riding these horses to hunt animals. So as you can see how their legs are shaped while riding really fast. So if you think about this picture, and think about it in the long term, as in these people are riding horses for hours on end, and it was very common, so it's a part of daily life. So this constant riding would lead to shortening of abductor muscles, such as the gluteus medius, causing this abnormal gait. So in today's society, we don't need horses, obviously. So we see a reduction of this genial rerum and an increase of population of normal gait pattern. So this constant use of horses could be the reason why we see an anatomically different skeletal or muscular structure of individuals during the Native American era of North and South America.
Yeah, so kind of like relating it for today's society and today's culture, you kind of see that with possibly with jockeys who are always constantly at horses, training, riding them at very high paces. You do see kind of like that bow-leggedness that comes from that, and that's caused from that shortening of the abductor muscles. And so, in a culture as of today that doesn't use horses often, other than one specific, you don't see that as often. So I think that's a fair argument that with riding horses, you would see kind of a bow-leggedness and abnormal gait or movement patterns.
So just to we saw that environment and culture affects the habits that people have in posture, and it eventually affects their health. Due to differences in culture relating to sitting and not having furniture with supporting backs, and people in those cultures tend to have better posture because of this lack of use of furniture, causing them to actively recruit muscles that we usually don't recruit automatically in the Western culture.
Yeah, so or like in the environment, how environment also changes the way that we move and not move, and so we see that the body is very good at adapting to the environment, and in an environment that requires you to hunt or move around on horseback, that would change structural muscles and bones in your body that causes these bow-leggedness or that abnormal gait pattern that we would classify as for today. And so, just kind of to wrap it all up, whether it's due to environment or culture, we just really think that the body is really good at adapting to demands or the lack of it, and it is really useful to look at the differences in cultures and environments to think about our bodies and how we move to make changes to make our life a little bit better. Whether that be efficiency for energy or just simply changing our posture in a chair to make sure that we're using that normal activation of muscles.